streaming. Let's check with Twitch, make sure. Alright, looks like we're good. And we're muted, so we're not going to have feedback. Cool. Hello everyone, this is Chris Ingerson. It is, I keep wanting to say February and then March, but it's April. April 12th, and this is the April 12th TextQuest Devstream. So today we're going to be talking about a couple of minor things that I've been doing in the background, some level optimization, and then we're going to continue working on our level transition. So to start with, before we get into combat, because that's going to be the bulk of the thing tonight, so we'll focus on that all at once. We're not going to start on it now and then leave and then come back. I will show you what I've been doing in some other scenes. I've been doing some level optimization to try and allow for more dynamic lighting. So a while ago I switched over to deferred rendering, which meant that I can have way more pixel lighting, or per pixel lighting, but the problem with doing that is that you increase your draw call count a lot. And when I originally did that to this level, you can see that I have a bunch of lights, not an insane amount I guess, but a lot. About, maybe not half, but maybe about a eighth of them are dynamic lights. That would be this one here at the bottom left of the screen. And actually, no, I've reduced these ones to be baked. So I only have a couple in there that are now real-time lights. But when I did that, my draw call count went up to about 900 when you were looking at the entire scene. And 900 draw calls is a bit excessive. So what I did to cut down on that is I actually changed some of these lights. So originally, these lights here, so these two, this one, and both of these lights were real-time dynamic lights. But in order to cut down on that draw call count, because these three lights in this room were responsible for about 400 draw calls. And I don't even know how it got that many from three lights. Because basically how draw calls work is for each dynamic light that hits a object, you get an extra draw call pass. But seriously, 400 draw calls in this, from just this area. I don't know how that happened. I don't have that many things in the room. Although I guess if it was per object, then yeah, that would make sense actually. So, in any case, to get around that, I've changed these guys into baked lighting. And actually, I tried, if we select this light, okay, so I set it to baked at the end. I've tried mixed lighting, and I found out, and it's not just me, but Unity's mixed lighting is kind of bad. So the idea of mixed lighting is that you have a light that is baked into the light map when you bake your light map. So it has high quality light there, but then it is also used to cast real-time lighting on dynamic objects, so non-static objects. But the problem with that is that it doesn't seem like it actually casts shadows. So you can have things sort of be lit by it, but it won't actually cast dynamic shadows. At least not in deferred rendering. Apparently in forward rendering it works, but not in deferred rendering. And in deferred rendering it can actually do the opposite, where you can have dynamic shadows be cast onto, or you can have static shadows cast onto dynamic objects, but not dynamic shadows cast onto static objects. And they might have fixed that since the original post talking about that, but the actual shadows don't show up for dynamic objects if you have a mixed light. You have to have a pure real-time light to actually cast dynamic shadows, which is terrible for performance. So for the time being, I've reduced some of my dynamic lights to just be baked, and that helps a lot with draw calls. Now the second thing that I've done is that I've actually set up some occlusion, occlusion culling. So if we play this scene, you'll be able to actually see what I have being occluded and where it's occluded from. Assuming that it wants to cooperate. Okay, so that green cone that you see moving around, that's my field of vision, and that's what's determining what gets shown and what doesn't. But you can see certain things are disappearing and not being rendered as I look around and don't look at certain objects. And if we actually turn on our stats, you'll see that looking off in this direction I have 30 batches, which is the draw call count. As I look over here, this is where I get the most at about 300 now, which is down from 900, so I've cut it into a third, which is nice. But let me go ahead and pause so we can move around in the scene here. So this is looking diagonally across the entire scene. This is where everything would show up. Not everything is. You can see that, the throne base, some of our windows, a few of our paintings are not being rendered, although a couple of them are that shouldn't. I don't know why this one renders. This to me does not make sense because this one is on the other side of a wall, and yet it's still being rendered for some reason, even though it's marked as being occluded. So I'm not entirely sure. Same thing with these. I'm not sure why these curtains are getting rendered. So there's some weirdness with how it determines what gets rendered and what doesn't, and I guess I don't quite fully understand it yet. But this is really the first time that I've messed around with occlusion culling. It's very easy to do, but I'm guessing it's very frustrating to get what you want out of it. Because at this rate, I really wouldn't expect to see much more than pretty much just the hallway, the exterior of this building, and maybe a couple of sort of one-off things here is what I would expect. But based off of these draw call lines, or these visualized lines, you can see that they're spilling over and going through certain things, which I don't quite understand why it does that. Because, yeah, there's stuff like this. Like, this is ludicrous. Like, nothing in this room should be visible, because there's no way. There's just no way. So, I'm guessing that there's a little bit more of an involved setup with occlusion culling to get it to actually, cull everything that should be culled. And it could be that I need to tell it just like, when I'm in this area, there's no point in drawing anything over here because you can't see it. And I understand that part of it is that, through this sliver right here, it sort of peeks through the door because the door is not a static object, so it can't block this stuff. But at the end of the day, as we move around, looks like about 350 draw calls is the maximum that I hit. I don't think I go up to 400 anymore. But that's actually a huge performance increase from what it was before. And of course, as we go further and further along in the level, the draw call amount will lower. And of course, if we get right next to a wall, you'll see that it lowers significantly. In fact, I'm not entirely sure why it sort of renders stuff like this. I think it's because it's rendering to a plane. But in any case, on average, I usually get about 200. The 300 spike is really only when you're looking in certain directions. But that's currently what the state of things is for this first level, which I was largely using this level as sort of the test bed for stuff like dynamic lights and real-time global illumination mixed with occlusion culling. So this is kind of like a good test level. Just because it's inside, it's not outside, so I don't have to account for a bunch of stuff, and it has a lot of lights. So it lets me test out a bunch of this stuff. So that's one of the things that I've been messing around with. The other thing I have been doing is our actual combat transition. So the old combat transition was just a quick fade, a quick blur, and now I'm also gonna go ahead and do maximize and turn off stats. So now the actual transition is very reminiscent of Final Fantasy, which is what I was aiming for. Okay. Oh, jeez. What is this? That doesn't seem right. I don't think I've even set up occlusion culling for this yet. Oh, no, I have. Why is it so big? No, I haven't done it for this. Okay, that's super weird. That must be a cached rendering from the castle. Interesting. Well, anyway, so I've made some small changes since the last stream. The most obvious ones will be the options are no longer down here at the bottom. I think I actually have an old screenshot. So this is what the battle screen used to look like. We had our HP up here at the top. We have our options down here at the bottom. And I was never a huge fan of having these options down here because they're just free-floating text. They don't have a background, which makes them harder to read. And it's very easy to miss them by accident because they blend into the background. I mean, they're white on a darker tan color, but it's still possible to take some time to actually realize they're there. So, and I didn't want to just have another semi-transparent background above here, because then you'd have this weird semi-transparent background with a white line, then a semi-transparent background with text in front of it. And I felt like that was very off aesthetically, and it was also eating up a huge portion at the bottom of the screen. So, what I did instead is I I thought of sort of battle screens in the past, and I recognized that if we looked at this one down here, I recognized that these three options fit in this top right space. And that's where I got the idea to put it immediately up to the top right. And then these color icons, I was worried because they were originally white, similar to what the HP bar was, but I felt like that was sort of becoming difficult to read. So you just have a bunch of white text at the top, and you would have to, stare. You'd have to stare very, very obviously at each letter to properly read each word because they bled into each other. Since they're pretty close and they would be the same color, so it would be kind of annoying to actually understand that they're different options at an immediate glance. So what I did is I chose three different colors. And originally I actually had battle as red, item as blue, and flee as yellow. And then I remembered that I really enjoyed playing Pokemon Stadium as a kid. And I don't know if any of you have actually played it, but its battle option menu looked like this. So actually pretty similar to what I've been doing, and that was not intentional. So I went back and looked at this, and I decided to make Battle Blue items green and Flee red as a sort of homage to these color schemes. Since these were actually based on the colors of the N64 controller, the A button was blue, B button was green, and the start button was red. So that was one of the fun little things that I decided to throw in there. And that's why these are now blue, green, and red. I'm a little worried because I learned recently that green and red can be a little difficult to have side by side because of color blindness. But the other option that I had, and this is something I was thinking about before the stream, is that I could change these. Let's see, where was it? The UI, view container, combat, player info. Here we go. Is that I could have these options only have their number be colored. So then I could do something like this: color equals white. It's super weird. I don't think that it. Oh, okay. I don't think that TextMesh Pro likes being edited at runtime while it's paused. Let's do this. So I could do something like this, where the numbers are colored in, but the actual options are white. So we'll do color equals white, and then color. And in truth, what we'd probably end up doing is I wouldn't have color equals white over item. I would have color equals whatever over the number. So something like this, and we'll go ahead and get the flee option in there while we're at it. So we'd say color equals red. Oh, no, I'm sorry, white. And slash color. All right. So I could do this, and that way we have color separating our options, but the options themselves are not colored in. But I don't know, for some reason it doesn't quite look as good to me. It looks sort of I mean, the colors make good divides, but at the same time I liked having them be solid colors, since that adds some color variety to the menu itself. And they are varied enough that one of the other concerns I had is that after you beat the game, you can change the color of the menu, or the text in the menus. So by default it's white, but once you beat the game, you could say change it to green, assuming you met the conditions to unlock green, or red, or blue. So one of the things I was worried about is having them be washed out by the other colors. So by having them be solid colors, it stands out a little bit more, I feel, and you wouldn't have awkward instances where, say, blue and green bleed together, since they would be solid blue or solid green or solid red. So I think for the time being, I'm going to mess around with this, and I think I'm going to keep it as solid colors. So if I were to just get rid of these guys, it really does not like being edited at runtime. That's what happens when you have really janky custom scripts. Or custom inspectors, which are, to be honest, very, very annoying to write. Anyway, so I really like having them be solid colors. I think that makes them stand out a little bit more. And it makes the menu itself more interesting to look at. In terms of actual gameplay, let me turn down the volume on the music manager. In terms of the actual, turn this down to like 0.5, I think. We'll go darker. 0.25. Alright, in terms of the actual combat, not much has changed. I have fixed the enemy error. So if we do battle, we do kick, crush, hit, kick, crush, we'll leave that as is. And for some reason I don't have the attack combo showing up. I'm guessing that happened because I changed the options around right before the stream started, so punch. We still have our text at the bottom telling us what to do, which is nice. Belch, hit, punch, crush, hit, belch. So we can actually get through combat now without having to freeze because the enemy attacks don't work. And once we, I think I have it set up so that if I win, it'll actually do a transition back. The transition back is not very impressive, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I looked at it. I've been more focused on the front load. Okay, yeah, nope. We do not have a good transition back. We do have a transition back, but it is not okay. Yeah, so we're going to have to get rid of that. We also don't have it automatically positioning us, which is a problem. And, oh man, I also realized that I'm going to... Oof, that sucks. So yeah, that's one of the things I need to work on still is the transition back. Particularly I need to make sure that the position of the player gets set up and cached so that when you load back into the previous scene, you are put back exactly where you were. It doesn't spawn you at an actual spawn point, which is what it wasn't very noticeable because the spawn point is very close to the enemy, but it is there. So we need to get the sort of back post combat stuff set up. One of the other things that I've done, and it's very, very quick, so you probably don't notice it, is that I've added a camera pan. So you can see that we actually zoom out from the, we actually start near the light and then pull back to have sort of a nicer scale of the combat is starting. And that's triggered whenever the combat scene loads, although it should actually be triggered a little bit later. Although I do kind of like it how it's moving before the fade in comes up. And I guess I should talk about what's happening during the actual transition, because it's kind of... I've cleaned it up as much as possible, but it's kind of a mess. Okay. So getting started, we now have a battle camera, which I probably should rename, for handling post-process effects. And, well, post-process effects for the actual battle transition. So this battle transition right here that's starting is a bunch of post-process effects. We have a screen overlay, which is actually, I don't know if it's going to show me. Can I select this? There it is. So I actually take a screenshot of the game at runtime, then store those bytes, open it back up, and load it in as a texture. So I don't actually save it or anything, but it's in memory, and I'm loading it as a texture to a image that is overlaid. Let me find the battle camera. It is overlaid on top of our render, so and I do that so that it remains consistent and it doesn't start like moving around. So if I wanted to do something after the actual next scene had loaded with this image, it would still look the same. So that's the first thing that happens. I take a screenshot, post that up, make it look like the screen hasn't changed at all, and then we start with a twirl, and the twirl is actually giving us a. I think I might be able to scrub. Yeah, it's actually causing this distortion, this sort of spiral distortion, and we go from 0 all the way up to about 180, I believe. And I might end up changing that to be a slightly lower number, like 170, because as you can see, once we reach 180, it becomes sort of like a perfect circle, and the left and right side of things are matched up pretty well. But I don't like that. I like ending it sort of right here, where it's got a bit more of an angle to it. Anyway, so by now that was about right here. After the twirl script, we move on to radial blur, which adds that sort of offset to everything, and we can intensify that right now. It adds that sort of zoomed in feel to it. And this was the original effect that we had for our transition. It was just this. But I think adding this on top of the twirl gives it a very, very unique and nice feel. Not necessarily unique, because this is almost entirely based off of Final Fantasy. And at the same time, after all of those have been added on, we have a fourth overlay. Well, we have a second screen overlay, which is our fourth post-process effect. And it just has a solid white texture that gets faded in to basically make it look like the screen is fading to white. So as we do that... Okay. Now, we've loaded the second... We're in the combat scene now. And once we've made the transition into the combat scene, we actually shut all of these things off. So our post-process effects camera, our post-process effects, so our overlays, our twirls, and our radial blur, those all get shut off. And instead, a combat transition... Oh, wait, where is it? Oh, I made it a loading canvas. Okay. Smart. That way it would draw over everything. Okay. So now we have an actual combat start menu, and this has a solid white fill image at first. Then it will fade from a specific color to a specific color. By default, it's going to fade from white to black, but if I wanted to, say, have an enemy with a special color that it fades to, like red or pink or something like that, then I could actually specify that in code. And if that's the case, then it would fade from white to red or purple or whatever. And once that finishes fading, let's go. Okay, so that is finished fading. Once we get there, we have these two sprites that are just gradient sprites, and you can see looking at the gradient image or the texture, I don't know, texture preview down at the bottom right. It's a gradient that is sliced in such a way that most of it will be solid, except for about 16 pixels of soft edge to make it feel a little bit more like eyes opening. And then if we let that play, you can see that those are starting to open up now. They just move to opposite ends of the top and bottom of our menu. Now originally I didn't have these as gradients, I had them as solid colors, but the gradient actually makes it feel a lot more natural, because having solid hard edges feels, I don't know what a good way to describe it is. It just feels off. It feels really, really sudden to see things moving, but for some reason having these softer edges makes the movement feel a lot less mechanical. Makes it feel a lot more organic. So we can let it go, and once we have that, our UI is there it is, weird. But once we have that, that takes us to our actual combat screen, and of course, while the opening was going on, we were having our camera pan back. So a lot of small stuff just building up to have a very quick, maybe 5-second long, I think, sort of transition. But it feels very, very nice. I actually like that a lot. I do need to have a different song for the transition. The song that I have in there right now is one of the songs I've had in TextQuest for 2.5 years now. It's a decent song, but it's not a good combat song. But aside from that, I'm actually pretty happy with the transition right now. So the next couple of things that I'm going to be focusing on are small details, like currently, if we play, and let me quiet the song again. Let's put this down at 0.2. So if we play, I don't quite like how static this screen is. It is very, very, very obvious that nothing is moving along. Hello, Joshua! Welcome to the Text Quest Devstream. Currently talking through the combat menu and some of the design choices that I have done. Sorry, I don't know if you've had that up there for a while. You might have. I have noticed you. I apologize. When I'm describing stuff, I can get a little bit in the zone. Anyway, so one of the before I forget, I don't like to be rude. How are you tonight? And thank you for stopping by. So one of the things that I would like to do next is actually add some dynamic movement to the combat scene, and that can be small stuff like having let me move over here, having sprites sort of animate a little bit, nothing too crazy, but maybe just sort of something similar to a breathing motion, just to have them slightly move up and down, just to make it feel a little bit like they're alive and not just these like static billboards that don't do anything. Angular JavaScript. Well, fancy. Are you making a server-side application, or are you just doing it for fun? Anyway, but yeah, that's that. Sort of those small details are the things I'm going to be focusing on. And tonight, for our actual work that we're doing on the stream, I think we're going to be looking at probably not animating the characters. Probably setting up the transition back to the previous level and getting the enemy to either despawn or do whatever to actually have something happen whenever combat ends. And we'll also be adding subtle movements to our combat menu, I think. So one of the things that I want to avoid with this is if we play, you can see that everything is nice and smooth. Punch. Also, that error is pretty annoying. But you can see that the sort of soft transitions from everything. Some damage done to me. This is another problem that I'm a little worried about. But you can see that that stuff transitions in softly, which I actually like. It's a tween. I don't like that. I don't like them popping up randomly, so I might have my battle options move in as opposed to just pop in. But yeah, you'll see that we have punch, crush, stomp, hit, blah 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 blah. All this stuff. That's an error, and I don't think it's just an error with TextMesh Pro's input. It might also be something that I've run into with Unity's input before, where for some reason it doesn't get cleared properly. The input menu doesn't get cleared, so it causes problems. You can see that it's basically cached everything, and the other problem is that it's not gone. It's there. So if I do battle, it'll stay there, which is very, very frustrating. So I'll let this stuff go, and then we'll see if it clears when it comes back. I don't think it will. Stomp. I also don't know why it's doing, or why it threw that error in the first place. Yeah, see, it's all still there. And it doesn't always do it, which is annoying. Alright. Sorry, I was covering the weird bug. So let's take a look at this. Fancy. Yeah, AngularJS is something that I remember looking at a while back, but I've never really done anything with it. I didn't really learn much about it. I just remember looking at it, really. Nice. Fancy, fancy, fancy. Having it update. Yeah. Keep going with it. It's always interesting to see what you can do with web-based stuff. And Angular JavaScript is one of the um, nicer ways to actually do real-time updates, if I remember correctly. Um, just because most of the other stuff involves pinging a bunch of crap to basically pull things out, and it's not great. But um, anyway, so on to the actual work for tonight. After a 30-minute debrief on what I've done, so the next thing we want to do is actually, you know what? Before we do that, let's go ahead and pull up resources UI. Let's pull this in, grab combat, pull this up, put it up here. All right, so now we have our combat view. There are a couple of things that we're going to want to do. And one is actually, I'm not sure if anyone noticed it, but I forgot to disable my HUD. So if I zoom in on this image, you can see that we have a small white square in the center of our image. That's our cursor that our normal gameplay has. So if I let me turn off the UI. If I were to play and actually look at things, you can see that you have that small square there in the center. That's to let you know when you're hovering over an interactive object. But I don't disable that when I make the transition to combat, so we're going to have to disable that real quick, and that's not going to be too hard. That's actually really, really easy to do. All we have to do is go to Combat Start View and say UI.close HUD. I think that's all I'm really going to need. The next thing I would probably want to specify is combat, maybe? Well, we'll see. I don't remember if it'll automatically turn on or not. But that should disable the HUD from showing up. Fortunately, I don't have an intrusive HUD. I just have that small square. But that should stop it from showing up when it's not needed. Alright, so let's take a look at what we want to have happen here. Assuming Unity doesn't crash on me. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and we're going to look at Combat View. So, one of the first things I need to do is add some information on our shown and hidden areas. So I've been using, I'm really worried that I'm going to have to make like a custom inspector to keep things organized. So currently this is our combat view inspector, and it's getting a little long, but it's kind of necessary, I suppose. In any case, so we're going to add some more rect transforms that are going to be the positioning for our info label or our options label when they're visible, as opposed to just enabling and then disabling them. So we're going to say public rect transform options shown pose public rect transform options hidden pose, and options label, actually, let's find all these. I can probably actually say public rect transform options area, just to be consistent. Oh, good. So I'm going to have a lot of coroutines running at the same time just to handle movement, which is not great. Actually, it's not terrible. I always get a little frustrated when I have to have multiple coroutines running side by side, which is incredibly stupid because that's the point of coroutines. So we'll have private coroutine options move coroutine, and what these are terrible grammar. These variables are basically ways for me to store the coroutines as they run, and that way, if for some reason I call them again, I'll be able to actually stop the original coroutine and then start a new coroutine without having to call stop all coroutines, which might mess something up. So I basically just have these cached coroutines. I might make a dictionary of them or something like that, just so that I don't keep adding. We'll see. So let's see. Show info, hide info. Okay. So we're going to have public void show options. And then we'll give it a duration. Duration equals 2f by default. And then we'll have, actually no, it's 1f for showing. And we'll do public void hide options. Float. Duration equals 2f. Alright. And we're basically going to copy this. And while I'm doing this, so Joshua, what are you just messing around with AngularJS for fun? Or are you actually wanting to develop that site into more of an application for Twitch? So we have input move coroutine. There's going to be options move coroutine. Move that in. And let's see, options move. Put this all in here. And then we'll say move array coroutine, blah, blah, blah. And then options area. Copy this out. And do options hidden pose. Options shown pose. Options shown pose. Oh, crap. Oh, no, that's right. Yep. Ah, I got that backwards. Dang it. Okay. Post this here. Put that there. Put that there. Put that there. Okay. So when it's hidden, it's going from shown to hidden, and when it's shown, it's going from hidden to shown. Want to make a social media website? Oh, ambitious. And working at Google is probably a good way to do that. You might look at Node.js if you're wanting to work at Google. I know that Google's throwing a lot of its weight behind that. But it's also hard to tell because Google has the tendency with its web development stuff to basically announce support for something and then just not do anything with it, and then it dies, which is kind of infuriating, but it's Google, so what are you going to do? Okay, so now we have an option, or we have a coroutine that will handle our options label showing up, and that means that we can do this. Instead of options label that's set active, we can just say show options, and here we will just say hide options. Hide options. There we go. And we'll give it duration and duration so that they are consistent with one another. All right. And I'm just going to go ahead and disable this, and we'll see what it needs, or what it looks like when we actually play it. Oh, Google owns Angular? Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of the WebAssembly stuff that Google is messing around with right now. Alright, let's see what happens. Hit. Why didn't you work? Oh, because I haven't set it up yet. Right. That was me being stupid. And that is a train. let's see, player info, options, there we go. Okay. And options is going to have a couple of things done to it. First is change our pivot from there to there. And then we are going to have, oh geez, this is going to be terrible. Okay. This is going to be fun. So let me create empty here. I'm going to copy this, paste it here. We'll call this options shown. Let's duplicate this. And then we will have options hidden as the name for this. And I believe it's going to need to be okay. Crap. I think we're gonna have to change it from this to this, and of course it's immediately not in the right spot. 0.3. I think that's right. Yes. Okay. This is great. So position Y is going to have to be 50. And I think that'll take care of it for us. So basically it's going to lerp off screen to this area. So if we go back here to view combat, we'll go to options shown down here, options hidden right there, and then we can disable our root and apply. And we'll turn off UI, hit save. All right. Not bad. Doesn't look too bad. Ah, stupid. It must be a length thing. I feel like it's well, I don't know. We'll see. Let this stuff all go, and we'll see what it looks like coming back on screen. I like it. Okay. Yeah, I'm not crazy about that. So I think this error shows up for the text mesh stuff whenever I'm, if I type past what the input field would allow, basically. Ugh, that's annoying. Oh, and I didn't check to see if the HUD was being disabled properly. I assume it is, but yeah, it's good to check that stuff. So the next thing I want to do is figure out why our attack combo isn't showing up. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and play this. And I'm going to go ahead and mute my audio. Oh, I guess I can't mute it. Oh, it's right there. Ah. Okay, so we're going to hit. All right. So we have our stuff sliding in. We will select an action, and then I will pause. So let's look at our UI, view container, combat, root, combat area, I think, player info, combo label. Our combo label is set to off for some reason. Okay. Let me type. Hit. This will also be an okay. So apparently, getting a combo doesn't actually do anything, but it will let me test this. Oh crap. Okay. Well, I can survive at least one wave without dying. So we'll let the enemy do their attack. That's gonna hurt a lot. I need to slow it down. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So the error doesn't show up, and I'm guessing that's because it There must be some bug where it's not getting deselected properly. Well, in any case, combo label never shows up, which is quite strange. Surely I disabled it at some point, but maybe I didn't. Oh, you know what it is? I don't actually enable or disable it. I straight up um, just enable or disable the component, not the actual game object. That's my problem. So let me find this. Do I need this anymore? Find all references. No, I can delete it. Hooray! One less thing. Okay. Combat info area. Ah, no, this one I do actually need. But I can get rid of these things. Okay. So back here at the top, I need to find my combo label. Find all references. Did I make my website? Which website are you talking about? the wisdom or wisdom? What the hell? The text quest one. This one. This. I assume this is what you're talking about. Oof. That background on this monitor does not look great. So that text is a little soft. Yeah, no, I made this. I crunched it together in like 3 days, I think. Is my font correct? I think my font's correct. It's a little odd, but it should be right. Yeah, that's all hand code. It's not Wix or anything like that. I really should use something like Squarespace or Wix or whatever, but I've always been too lazy to do that. But yeah, I coded all of this. I made all of this stuff and got it to work. Not great, but it works. Let's close that. Anyway, this is where I was looking for. Let's see. Text combo message. Let's see, enabled. Here we go. Weird. I enable it, or I disable it, but I never actually enable it. That doesn't seem right. Okay. Yeah, I don't. It sucks because it takes way more time to hand code your website, but it gives you infinitely more control. So I always prefer to hand code, even though I don't like spending, half a week at least on the website. But it looks way nicer than it used to. The old Text Quest game website was god awful. It was a static web page that was just terrible to look at. Kind of like my website, because I haven't taken the time to update it. Let's see. Here we go. So I need to actually enable this whenever something comes up. Let's see. Let's look at this. If not text is null or empty, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I'm going to say if combo label.gameObject.active self, not that, then combo label.gameObject.setActive false or true. But yeah, I mean the reason that stuff like Wix and Squarespace exist is because it's faster and easier for people who have zero HTML coding, JavaScript coding, CSS coding experience to actually make their websites, and they can make them look pretty decent, like actually pretty good. But the trade-off is that you get locked into sort of templates, and those templates can be pretty flexible. But for people like me who obsess over small details, it can get really, really frustrating to try and work within the constraints of this template format. So I almost always hand code my stuff. He says as he uses a game engine that he didn't make. Well, I'm only human. Oh crap! I accidentally clicked on substance or bitmap. Don't need that. That's another problem. I might have to bring back. I turned off the cursor, so I turned off the mouse cursor for combat because I didn't think that it would be necessary. And then I forgot that there's actually an input, or there's an actual clickable area, so you might forget. You might accidentally click off of it, and then you don't know what to do. And you can solve that just by, so here's the actual mouse, and if I click up here in the center of the screen, you'll see that I can't type anymore. But if I hit enter, then I can type just fine. Test something. Oh, well, we learned something interesting. TextMesh Pro does not like having longer strings than the input field will handle. But yeah, that's a problem that I've run into, where if the player can't actually see anything, they get sort of confused. So I might bring back the cursor. Actually, let me do that real quick. Let's go to Combat Start View, or is it just Combat View? It's going to be all the way up here at the top. Refresh. Here we go. If I can just turn that off. That way we still have the moving mouse capability. They are programming gods when they want to be, and only on things that they're interested in. I don't know if you caught the first sort of couple of minutes of my stream. I was talking about how mixed lighting doesn't work in Unity. And mixed lighting has not worked in Unity for, like, at least since version 4. There have been people complaining about it for the past 2 or 3 years, and they just have never fixed it. So sometimes they're really good, and with Unity 5, they've been blowing it out of the water. Like each subsequent release of 5, so 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, and then I guess we can gloss over the terribleness that was 5.3.1 through 5.3.3. But each successive iteration has had huge performance optimizations and really cool stuff. But they're really, really good at getting the broad strokes of an engine working. But they almost always completely rely on asset store sort of providers to actually make the better content. That's why A-Star pathfinding was so big. That's why NGUI was so big, and I assume it's still huge. That's why a bunch of these smaller things are really, really big, because Unity just doesn't take the time, I assume, to actually build these nice systems for people. And it makes sense from a business end, because why offer something for free as part of the engine when you can charge people $100 on the asset store and then you get a cut of that sweet, sweet money? Anyway, where was I? So yes, oh, hello. Did I not save it? I did save it. Something else is hiding our cursor now. Isn't that interesting? Let me see where else this is getting called. Combat view is the only one. That's really weird. So I think that's really weird. Let me check that again, because it didn't look like our cursor showed up, which was very weird. It should have been visible. But our HUD is not showing up, which is good. We don't want that in there anymore. And grab this. All right. We have something of a cursor. There it is. Crap, it's drawing on top of it. Ah, dang it. Also, why is it making it go away? It shouldn't go away. Um, oh, I bet it's because I'm closing the other menu. Crap. I didn't think about that. Oh, that sucks. Dang it. Okay. So let me go back to combat start view. Go up here. Do public override close. I'm going to say base.close and then UI.cursor or show cursor. There we go. But yeah, like I was saying, there are certain things that Unity does very well, and then certain things that it just does not do pretty much at all, which kind of sucks. But to be fair, stuff like Unreal or other engines like Unreal and Amazon Lumberyard and CryEngine, I suppose, they all have their own problems and their own positives. Like Unreal has figured out lighting. There is no denying that. They have got lighting done. Okay, so we got our cursor back. Ha! Although, let me check. Ah, crud. Right. Cursor shows up. Okay. Let me go to this combat start view. We're going to do public override. Open. And we're going to say UI.hide cursor. And I was responding. Thank you very much. I was talking about the whole Unity programming gods thing. And then I started talking about Unreal, which is going to be a fun thing to get into again. I'm getting ready to gear up for a VR project in Unreal. Should make development interesting. If only because I'm antsy to get my VR headset. Okay, so our cursor goes away, goes away, goes away, goes away, and haha, shows up. Good. Okay. So our cursor shows up for combat, but not for the transitions, which is good. Now, what I probably want to do is hide it here, I think. So let me go ahead and grab this. Go to combat view. And I'm going to say, whenever I show input, I'm going to say show cursor. Whenever I hide input, I'm going to hide the cursor. Okay. Well, hopefully the bathroom adventure wasn't too terrible. Alright, so once that's working, we should have our cursor actually be visible when we want it and not visible when we don't need it. And even though you can't click on anything, again, it's a nice safety tool, I think. Just because players like having it be there. So it's not visible during the transition, but it is visible here. That's kind of annoying. I might actually let's go back to combat view, go all the way up to the top here, and then we actually might disable it again here. So it doesn't show up halfway through the transition. And if that's the case, then actually we don't even need combat start view, I don't think, to handle it. So we might be able to just get rid of this, actually. Let's let this go and see what the transition looks like. Man, I got bogged down on details. It's already 9 o'clock. And everything magically worked, and it was great. Side note, I probably should check out the forums on TextMesh Pro to see if he has a new version of the Unity input or the UGUI input field. So, uh-oh. Crap, really? Okay. Then we're going to cheat, and we will have it here. Once we have that, I think our cursor will be taken care of. I know it seems like we're spending a lot of time on just getting this cursor to behave correctly, but small UI details like that are actually really important for how intuitive a menu feels. And even if there's nothing to click on, having that cursor there is a nice safety feature in case they accidentally click off of the menu. So we'll let that go. Have all this stuff show up. We have our cursor now. And the battle goes away, which is good. Stop. We're going to stop attacking. Our attack combo shows up. Hooray. And crush, stomp. We're going to have to stop because if we go much further, it's going to break our input field. And one of the other things that I would like to do is actually have this combo meter build up and then decrement one at a time as attacks are executed. But that's going to take a lot of polish and effort to get done. So, for the time being, I actually like... I like that our cursor shows up whenever we're done with the non-input based sections. And again, the reason that I have this here is because if you accidentally clicked off here, you can see that the input is no longer selected. So if I tried to type, nothing would happen. And if I had no idea that I could just hit enter to refocus it, I would be lost. And let's talk about assuming, like a 10-year-old kid is going to play this, or younger even. Having this visual cursor here makes it way more understandable that, hey, this isn't working. Maybe if I come down here and click, it might work. Because even if you're just randomly clicking all over the screen, there's nothing happening, and then boom, suddenly you have the cursor and the caret blinking. So it's just it's a very nice safety feature to have, even though it's not necessary at all. So, headphones are messing up. You're 12. Well, I got in the right ballpark. Where was I? So, trying to think. Most of the other stuff that I had planned for today is probably going to take too long now. Because the transition back isn't necessarily hard, but there's a lot of stuff to it. So I don't know if I'll be able to do it on the stream given the amount of time that I usually have. Do I have anything small that I can do for this? I've been debating having a different health bar, maybe, but I don't know. I kind of... The numbers aren't great, but they work. And I honestly don't know what else I could do besides having your actual physical body be your health meter, but then that gets really awkward and weird because you have to make it very obvious how much health you have. Same with the troll. The troll would have obviously different health from you, so it's hard to say. Did I have items working again? Oh dear. Oh, no null reference. Ah, right. Crap. Okay. So getting the items to behave themselves might be good. Let's see, UI, uContainer, combat, root. I believe we want combat area and then item menu. That seems odd to me. So, why is this here, because this probably should be something like this. No, that doesn't. Maybe player info should be above. There we go. That makes more sense. But why does our label down there? Give me a second here. Item list permanent info, I believe is what this is. Yeah, the back button. Why is this offset so much? There's our root, our item menu. Its anchor is correct. Oh, no, it's not. What the hell? There we go. Yeah, that's what we want. So now we have that. Okay. Okay. Well, let me go ahead and turn on this. Let's grab our item menu. Set its bottom to be 0, and its top will be the same. Player info. Crap. Let me think. What do I want to do here? So it might be good to have the player info be available, but then I would want to replace battle, item, and flee with different different content, essentially. Let me think. Because we still need the input field, so we can't get rid of it. But we also need to increase its solidness, or decrease. Okay, we can do that. So let's change our item menu from bottom. It is at bottom 0, and that should be correct. Ah, right. Okay. Give me a second here. Go to input. I'm also going to delete these because I don't need them anymore. Get our solid color. Move this into item menu, root. Change that. So it's now semi-transparent as well. And as a quick check, permanent info. And we are going to make this 0 alpha. All right. So that should work. At least it should look more visually interesting. Even if our player info isn't quite correct. Oh, and we're also going to want to set our top down by 50. That's interesting. We have solid items. No, that's like an after image. Ugh. Okay. Super weird. We're going to move player info back up at the top there. Okay. And now, I believe, I'm going to want to just do this. So we will pull these things back, disable the root, hit apply. And I'm going to see what this looks like in combat. Now, we might end up calling it a night after that, just because it's, again, there's a lot of the stuff that I want to do, it's going to take too long. We'd be here until like 11, at least, probably. So we have our transition. Oh. Ah! Dang it. I forgot. Let's go back here. Combat area, player, item menu. That? No. Okay. Our root needs to be disabled. But also there we go. our player info should draw on top of everything else. So then we can apply that. Save, and now let's try it again. Hit. And okay, things look good. Let's go with this. Interesting, the alphanumeric pad does not like working with me. Must be a different enter. It doesn't look bad per se, but I'm not a huge fan. So what I would probably want to have happen visually is, you know what, I might be able to get away with it by doing this. Let's go to item menu, root. Let's set this to be 0, and then our root is going to be labels. Gross. Ah, dang it. Everything is so close. I have to make this 100. And our labels will be at position -50. Okay. So let me apply that again. Oh, crap. No, that's fine. Okay. I was worried for a second there. So let me apply that. Come up here. I'm going to do hit. And things should work. So if we do, if I could type 2. There we go. Good. So now our top bar is darker because it's overlaying a semi-transparent image onto a semi-transparent image, so it appears darker. That makes it separated from this actual list, which is good. And our actual back is not great. So that's one last thing that I need to do is set this from that. I'm going to change this guy to be set up, and then we will apply. And with that, I think the small tweaks have been taken care of. So we might end up calling it a night. And as far as this week's streaming schedule goes, let's see. Yes, okay, good. I wanted to highlight it when you click over it, so you could actually click on it. Oh, interesting. Good. I have it canceling out if the item screen is open. So let me make sure that back works. Cool. Now it is back. Cool. Good. So that's set up nicely. So a lot of our UI stuff is dealt with now, which is good. And I will be working on getting some of the more complicated nuances taken care of so that I can just go over them on Thursday. But Thursday night we'll probably still be doing programming. And we'll probably still be covering combat to try and get it sort of in a nice polished state, or semi-polished state. We'll see what I can do. But that's going to be the focus, I think, for quite some time. Just getting the system nicely in place, because it's at a good place right now. It's not boring. I think it needs a couple of more. I don't want to say additions, but little pieces added on, just to make it more interesting. Because it's solid right now, but it's not great. It's not hugely engaging. And I think the different combat attack patterns help with that, but it doesn't solve the problem of combat being sort of a little. So, for the time being, I'm going to be messing around with that, getting some ideas written down, trying to get things set up, and yeah, we'll see what I can get done by Thursday. So, for tonight, that'll be it for the stream tonight. As always, thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.